Hello and welcome everybody to your weekly energy report from me to you on, what is this, it'll be the 25th of January through the 31st of January. I know, I should really know the dates that we're looking at, but the reality is they all blend into each other anyway at the moment, don't they? So, what are the major astrological considerations of this time? Mars, our best friend, obviously still in Taurus, and eagerly making aspects to its pals, conjunction with Uranus. So while that's a harmonious aspect, you can, I'll come back to that, but then we also have Mars squaring Jupiter. So these two aspects are extremely potent in the sense that Uranus is that revolutionary change, that, desire for change coming out in us, radical change. Mars being that fighting spirit, and Jupiter being the expander, the spiritual awakener and expander. So combine all of those together and you have a little bit of a conflict of, I wouldn't say a conflict of interest actually, it's just energy that is not necessarily completely harmonious in a logical sense. In terms of how the universe works, those energies, of course, are fundamental and necessary to the shift that we are in need of. And of course, the uneasiness that has sat within us for the last, for quite some time, but particularly seems to have reignited in recent weeks. People, we've all been wondering why the media is showing us images of everything being so politely back in place in the world, and that is because they don't actually show us what is happening in the world. There are mass demonstrations everywhere. There is civil unrest all over the place. There are people losing their livelihoods. There are people losing their identity. There are people who have no hope whatsoever in their lives right now. And what is taking place in our society right now as an intended reset is not in harmony with the masses. And at the end of the day, the masses are more populous than the deciders. And everything about this reading, everything about these energies dictates something very simple, which is the revolution takes place from within. If you're not seeing the changes you want to see in the outside world, see them in yourself. Make them happen in yourself, and you will see them outside of yourself. And if we're all doing that, if we're all holding space for that, if we all have that focused intentionality, imagine the effects that that can have. So, we also have the full moon in Leo coming up this week, and that Leonine energy is exactly what we need right now to trigger us into leaping forward on our own personal trajectory towards sovereignty in a world that's changing drastically and rapidly. And this is something that we all have to be very focused on for our own survival and eventual well-being. Nothing is as it seems. We keep revisiting this same theme, and the only way to truly gauge just how much disparity there is between reality as it's presented to us and reality as we sense it intuitively is to listen to ourselves, to rid ourselves of the enormous display of corrupting manipulation. I was just talking about this to somebody. If the media chooses to discuss what happened in this country, in the United States, recently, with the alleged insurrection on the Capitol, again, I am not being political in saying this. I speak on behalf of the people, as we all do. And we have to acknowledge people's needs, and we have to acknowledge their actions as being demonstrations of need. And the more fervent the action, the more indicative of the importance of what lies behind the action, right? Because we all know how docile and passive we are in the majority in our cultures and societies. We're comfortable, we don't upset the status quo. When the status quo is upset to the degree where in a supposed leading democracy of the world, people descend upon the Capitol and cause disruptive chaos, that's an indication that there's something that is not being addressed. Obviously. So a great part of that comes down to spiritual needs not being met and possibly not even being acknowledged in ourselves. But a lot of it also comes down to pure livelihood and principles and the values on which people live their lives, and for people manipulated by the liberal media to sit in judgment of those other people as if they are somehow pariahs and somehow, characterized only by a very limited perception that they are inbred morons who don't have an intellect to drive their action, that they are purely racist, that they are any of these things. Of course, I am not saying that there are not bad actors in any scenario, and I don't know all of those people. I don't know what their driving force was, but I do know that when the media only focuses on the weirdo that was wearing the Viking helmet or whatever and, turn it into a travesty, it takes away from the true value of what we are seeing take place in our society. And this is taking place around the world. All of our cultures are basically media-driven, propagandist cultures. So, the reason I'm speaking on that is because we spend so much time focusing on judging others, judging the motives behind people's actions, that we tend to forget in that where we stand, what our values are, how we perceive our experiences, how we are driven to form our opinions, and we're being called upon to be mindful of that. And I'll start with the first card from the Sacred Destiny Oracle card, because it sets the tone. Inner peace. And Where have I put those? Okay, let's read what inner peace has to tell us, as if we wouldn't know instinctively what that means. Simply sitting next to a lily pond, watching the dragonflies soar overhead and looking at the luminous lily pads floating gently on the water while their translucent flowers open their petals to the heavens, can fill one with the sense of profound and everlasting peace. Lilies grow in many countries and have been given a wide range of meaning. However, one enduring image of the lily is the notion that out of darkness and mud arises a thing of immense beauty and grace. No matter how much darkness there has been in your life, you can rise into enlightenment and profound tranquility. The sacred landscape wants you to know that inner peace is your birthright. Tranquility occurs when you realize that your life is unfolding according to divine planning. Serenity isn't something you have to work for or search for. It already exists within you. To find this inner peace, simplify your life, spend time in nature, and listen to the message of your soul. True peace transcends fear and connects you intimately to the Creator. Breathe deeply and fully, knowing that all is well. And again, we get so distracted by the external that it's so easy for us, those of us willfully participating in this spiritual awakening, reawakening, however you want to term it, we can fail to actually be mindful of our process. It's so easy to become distracted between having jobs and worrying about how we're going to pay our bills and being so disconnected as a result of this state of the world as it is right now, this global intoxication with manipulation and propaganda. This fear of lack that we have consciously been working so hard on to eradicate from our soul, that the control energies just keep throwing back at us. Like we're constantly being challenged to hold space for our spiritual sovereignty. And it's so easy to fall into hopelessness and despair and to feel powerless, or to be a coward and fall into a place of no consciousness, of focusing on the I, focusing on how things affect us. And if we are not affected right now, that somehow we can confuse that with transcendence, which it is not at all. It's ignorance. So we have to check ourselves, because we are only answerable to ourselves because God is within, right? It's so simple and so complicated all at once. And that is the beauty of godliness, because it's much bigger than anything that we can imagine. Like the universe, like everything, really, right? You have to stay teachable. You have to stay in the essence of not knowing. And it's really, really hard, because we all have this fucking monster within us called an ego, which is sort of necessary for our functioning in our society, but also creates 99% of our problems. So beyond that, we have Milk and Honey from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck. And I will read what our number 51 has to share with us about the underlying intricacies of the energies of the week ahead, because that's how I have chosen to read this card, or this deck, should I say. The essential meaning of Milk and Honey is the taste of prosperity, opportunities born of authenticity, nurturing abundance, trusting that your needs will be met. You've entered a sweet time in your life, enjoying the land of milk and honey that everyone wants to experience. It's an interlude that feels more languid than ambitious, when all your senses are awake to the unlimited possibilities in the universe. Remember, we talked a lot about sensuality last week and exploring our senses. These times are precious and only come when you're in your authentic zone, wearing the world as a loose garment, not wanting, yet able to be nourished in ways both tangible and subtle. Abundance is an energy that you are a living part of. All your needs are being met. You are given the gift of nourishment in every form. Sensuality, connection, and passionate relationships between lovers, sweet moments of understanding, and love among friends and family are all here for you to savor now. Your heart's calling will be answered. Let your thoughts and feelings be sweet with gratitude, and you will be nourished with the honey of abundance. There is only one authentic you. This version of yourself is Spirit's emissary in the world. When you're in alignment with the truth that you are a unique expression of the divine, your ego can rest and your soul can illuminate your purpose. Now is the time when you're seeking your true north. When you find this direction, you automatically step into prosperity, and the world brings you evidence of abundance. Miracles are a choice and a way of seeing the world. With every choice you make right now, you have the potential to seize good fortune and embrace your destiny. Opportunities will lead you to your best life now. Be open to them. You're getting a sweet taste of what you want. And it's important to remember that in terms of the tempering, again, of these energies. You know, when we were talking just now about Mars, Uranus, and Jupiter and how they're interacting with each other, you know, this is, again, the planets work as a tempering process of our soul experience, in the sense that, if there's a square between Mars and Jupiter, it's there specifically to make us more aware of our egoic process versus our spiritual nature. And, you have to experience the differentiation, the clashing sometimes. You have to experience the inner turmoil. You have to experience the discomfort to get to a point where you become open enough to be more malleable to spirit. And we are all experts on that at this point, but that doesn't mean that we don't occasionally require being reminded of it in our process. So that seems to be a lot of what we're going to be experiencing, because I don't know about you, but this last week I felt myself in conflict a lot. Inner conflict, and then not wanting to externalize that conflict into actual irritants, because the immensity of my inner feelings of frustration, our inner feelings of frustration, we don't want that to exacerbate or taint the authenticity of what our real frustration is with something in the outside world. Something that can be dealt with on a more pragmatic level by just addressing it calmly, succinctly, directly, even if the other person doesn't receive it that way. Because that's their problem, not yours or mine. We don't need it to be then compounded by our energetic disharmony coming from things within ourselves that we are not tending to or that are out of balance. So, again, we have to do the work within in order to experience the rewards outside of us. We got 2 Spirit Animal Oracle cards this week. I haven't had this one in a long time. Hummingbird Spirit. In fact, the very first collective reading that I ever did on YouTube, this was the Spirit Animal Oracle card that came out. And Bee Spirit. So let's start with Hummingbird Spirit, number 34. And see what the message is from Spirit on that. Be here now. The hummingbird's wings beat so swiftly it can hover in seeming stillness as it drinks deeply from the flower. Hummingbird Spirit comes to remind you that the beauty and sweetness of life is in the eternal now, the timeless present. Here and now, you are becoming the person you wish to be, to have the experiences you wish to have. Focus your energy on the flower before you, for what you desire is being provided. Yes, there are blossoms everywhere. The choices can be dazzling. Hummingbird Spirit's message is that you have no need to go about in search of something better, for all that you require and desire is before you. You will know this as you become still, feeling your connection to Spirit, who loves you unconditionally and will always provide for you. And that is probably also very much tied to what we were just talking about. It's like when you are at peace with yourself, when you're doing that inner work, you don't have to look outside of yourself for change. You don't have to go into the agents of chaos to seek new opportunities for a pathway to balance, because the reality is you can just start by finding balance in the things that you already have. But that's going to probably require checking your ego and looking at yourself and finding ways to adjust your own expectations, your own participation, your own energetic frequency towards other things and people in your environment. So it's a lot to remember, obviously. It can be quite daunting especially if you happen to be out of alignment and you just wake up in a bad mood one day, or you didn't get enough sleep, or somebody that you experience on a daily basis does something that triggers you in some shape or form. We all go through this stuff, right? So anyway. And what is the other card? Where did I put it? Oh, goodness. Oh, here it is. Under my leg. Be Spirit, sweet results await. So this would probably be the consequence of that mindfulness, right? That's how Spirit works. So Be Spirit tells us that sweet rewards are on their way if you are willing to get your ego out of the way. I mean, I can't make this shit up. I mean, basically, it just parrots what I just said, or vice versa, There's no time. Who knows what came first, right? That's how Spirit works, with intent. Where was I? If you are willing to get your ego out of the way and immerse yourself in the connected energy of all things, Be Spirit knows not to let a sense of being a separate self get in the way of a good thing. Spirit is always producing honey. Miracles and magic are everywhere. When you connect with the great hive, you are vibrating and buzzing in exquisite harmony with all. Be Spirit asks that your focus be on connectivity. Your body, heart, soul, and psyche experience total interconnectedness and a true integration when you self-forget, when you remember that you are a part of a greater unified consciousness, moving from separation into connection, from self-centered limitation to spirit-centered infinite possibility and potential. You become busy as a bee, enjoying the gifts of Bee Spirit. And that is part of the propagandist energy that the control energies are projecting upon us, is to keep us separate, to keep us in hate, to keep us in division, to keep us looking at what's different in ourselves from other people. We focus on the differences of value and opinion. We don't focus on the commonality, ever, anymore. Is it any wonder that our world is completely insane? You can't function that way. We have biology in common. And that's enough within itself to justify the ability to transcend our differences. But then you move into the spiritual and the intangible and the place outside of time and space, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Get over yourselves. We're all the same. And yes, some people are 5s, some people are 6s, some people are 2s, some people are 9s. There's probably nobody who's a 10, because that's the journey we're on, right? To constantly grow. But we don't get to see that as a difference, a fundamental difference. We just have to recognize within ourselves our power to influence frequency and vibration. So if somebody else is not as evolved in one way or another as we think we are, then our moral responsibility is to elevate, not to separate. And, sorry, ugh, you know the drill. That's just where it's at right now. So let's figure out how we can integrate all of that. Fully in alignment with your highest expression of yourself, your heart opens and creativity rushes through you, seemingly without effort, as you experience that nothing feels like work. And there's another thing that's coming up. Work. What is work to you? And why do you do it? And if your answer is purely monetarily, then you need to think about that. I have to constantly remind myself that isn't the reason why I work. There are other things. There are things that I get out of it. I can't be the martyr and just look at my life and think that I'm in service to somebody else specifically because otherwise I won't be able to pay my bills. That is poverty consciousness. It's not taking responsibility. Industriousness is driven by enthusiasm and inner motivation, and time seems to fly by quickly as the hive supports you in the making of honey. Do you feel the presence of your helpers in the hidden realms adding their energy to your creations? Magical results are taking form and will be sweeter than you expect. Bee Spirit wants you to remember that your part in the divine partnership with the conscious universe is being rewarded, even if you can't see that yet, and asks that you share your good fortune, as there is plenty of honey for all. Be a part of the larger whole, the force that brings forth all that is sweet and delightful. And that is another thing, right? When we share, when we are generous, when we're open, when we flow, happiness comes naturally. We feel content. We feel at peace. We heal. We find harmony. So thank you, Animal Oracle Spirit cards of this week. Now let's get into our tarot reading. We did a Celtic cross this week, and I think it's going to be pretty straightforward because none of it is based on the tangible. It's all based on the idea of what we've just talked about. So I'm going to whiz through this and... sorry, I keep, flopping my legs around, but I really don't have a better place to do this right now. It's a rainy day here in Los Angeles. It's chilly. It's kind of nice every now and then to have this. Anybody that knows me watching this knows how much I dread living in a climate where it's like that all the time, but we get these intermittent weeks in winter in Los Angeles that allow us to feel more reflective and less distracted by the constant nature of the sun energy, which has a very different influence on us, right? So anyway, I digress. Our underlying overall energy for the week is the King of Pentacles. So again, this is so much about knowing our own worth. When we are in that sense of self-awareness, self-confidence, knowing that we have enough as a result of having consciously worked through the process of accumulating experience and security. When we're in that place and we're not coming from a place of poverty consciousness, that influences how open we can be to the flow that we've just talked about towards peace and harmony and generosity. And we're in that place. We have the tools. That's what the King of Pentacles tells us. And it was clarified by an Asha Zen tarot card, the nothingness message. And I'm not going to read that because we've had it quite a few times, and I think at this point we understand that it is really the deconstructionist process that actually opens us up to fulfillment, because when we get rid of all the defining clauses of identity and politics and social infrastructure, and we accept ourselves purely as we are in our essence, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, we can have moments of clarity that come from understanding that separateness and inclusiveness are just two sides of the same coin, of the same experience. The commonality in that is this vessel in which we are. But when we are in touch with the essence of what drives this vessel, nothingness is everything. That sounded convoluted, but I know that you know what I was trying to express. At the center of our reading right now, we have Seven of Wands. So again, the Seven of Wands, you know, a lot of this is that comeuppance. It's that idea, like, you know, when we've done our work, when we've done our process, when we are, you know, we've done due diligence, you know, and we reap the rewards of our process, we then find ourselves in that sort of passage of time where we feel the need to defend our values, to define our values externally. So anybody or anything that comes along that antagonizes that or makes us have to rethink the draconian nature of our decisions is seen as the enemy. But the Seven of Wands really also speaks on another level of an inner conflict. Not so much, well, it is a conflict, but it's a conscious conflict. It is the tempering of what serves us and what doesn't. So, you know, in this case, it's our ideas, the ones. You know, this is what drives us to act. You know, not our thoughts, our ideas, you know, our creative flow. And sometimes we get to these points where we may have been rewarded for a creative flow within us, like for a way that we function, but we outgrow it. And so we have to contemplate that. We have to look at our behaviors. We have to look at how we manifest our thoughts into ideas. And realize that sometimes we've taken some wrong turns, or we've acquired the wrong neurotransmission ideology about how we experience our ideas into reality. That's really deep, what I just said, and it really is something that I think we probably all need to contemplate intellectually and spiritually, privately. I'm certainly going to have to come back and rewatch myself to understand what the hell I'm talking about right now. I got it, but that not really, you know what I mean? So, and that makes sense because it was crossed by the Three of Wands. So this is, again, the knowledge, it's the acknowledgement of all our effort and all the seeds that we've planted, and we know we're going to receive our crop. You know, we know we're going to be able to continue cultivating the worth of the things that we put in place, but we're waiting for our ships to come in. We're waiting for what's the word I'm looking for? want to say the solidification of the ideas in reality, if that makes sense. And there is this huge cycle of change that has brought this to our central energy now, because our deep past is the Five of Pentacles. So that is that poverty consciousness that really antagonized our lives and kept us feeling so small and disempowered for so long, that is actually now being pushed out of the picture. It's almost like it's, you know, at the very, very end of, you know, it's about to drop off the edge of the conveyor belt, you know, we're kind of done with it. But it's a process, and we're very aware of it. We've been aware of it. We've also not been aware of it for long periods of time, but, you know, we've worked really hard, particularly in the last 3 years, to work through acknowledging, understanding our poverty consciousness, where it comes from, what drives it, what pushes us into it, what drags us back down into it. But we've gotten so good at that now it doesn't really have that much influence, and it's about to have a lot less. So that's good news. However, it has left us in this space, the weary, wary, mentally overwhelmed, perhaps even a little bit martyrish sense of jadedness, not being able to feel that we actually have the desire to reinvest in things that perhaps have not gone our way in the past. But the thing is, we have to remember that the reason that things felt that way to us is because we were in poverty consciousness. You know, it's like focus on the positive versus focusing on the negative will give you a very, very different experience of exactly the same circumstances, right? So that's the consequence of that. It is our underlying energy of the reading, so it's what these experiences are built upon. So it's this very weariness that has actually caused us to philosophically and spiritually sort of expand to the point of bursting beyond those limitations, right? And so the nice thing about that is that it brings us into hangman energy, clarified by the star. So, you know, again, maybe we haven't actually been in recent times quite as focused on our spiritual wellness or our spiritual expansion, because we've been so focused on the idea of the outside influences doing that work for us, whether it be all the talk that we had about the grand conjunction, and then the political upheavals that were expected and then became just a part of the status quo as always, you know, like, I mean, I don't know what it will actually take for people to wake up and actually realize that things aren't working, because it just seems that they pile more and more crap on everybody's plate, and people are very, very passive. But again, that's a whole other story, and it's not what we're focused on. It's not who we are, and we have to lead by example, right? So this opportunity opening up in this week ahead for us to have a strong reassessment, reevaluation, assessment. You know, the hangman is often seen as a sacrifice of some sort. Now, again, somebody else that I was listening to recently was talking about the difference between like focusing on sacrifice as a concession, or seeing sacrifice from a spiritual perspective as being giving up something in honor of a more aspirational end goal. again, I don't know how that plays out for you in your life because I don't know individually how you experience those things, but I can see how that applies to me. I see how limiting my own beliefs can be to my own expansion and growth, because I can easily get caught up in the materialistic, and I can easily find myself in the position of self-judgment over what how I, don't follow linear patterns that everybody else follows, but then at the same time expect that I should have the same experiences or outcomes as they do. I don't always have the tools to measure my own success, because it's not the tried and true experience that is mirrored back to us as being success in the propagandist, very grotesque version of society in which we live. I was just thinking the other day about how, if you were to start the world, a society, a culture, and, you look at our own culture, and let's say, for example, you look at the basis of when I was growing up, of course, there was the idea that service and humility and sacrifice, these were profoundly Christian values in the world that I grew up in. And, for whatever reason, I grew up at a time when, we revolted against the dogma of religion because it had been presented as dogmatic. But these principles, these values, are very basic and very beautiful. And to come back into that knowledge of the power of humility and service is quintessential to our growth as individuals, as communities, as a global civilization, Anyway, I say all of that because that's what this is about. Service and humility. These are beautiful things. They're not deprivation. It's not giving something up in the sense that you are giving up things that you feel you deserve. If you feel that way about whatever is more spiritually driven, the more spiritually driven path that you should be on, then that means that your values need to be reassessed. That's the opportunity we're being given. And our crowning energy couldn't be more clear. We get the 9 of Pentacles clarified by the 10 of Pentacles. So the rewards of self-sufficiency, of having faith that we have enough to be able to allow ourselves to be generous and open and in service and in humility, opens up this crowning energy for all of us. It's there for us. We've done the work. We can reap the rewards. It's up to us, but it just requires us to shift our focus and our intentionality and be more conscientious about how we apply it. To whom, to what, when. Rather than, you can't be in service and humility when you're like this. This is a martyr card. These people aren't, they're not even open to receiving help from the tree of life, right? They're like walking on by. They're not accepting that their experience of lack is a gift to point them in the direction of what it is that they are lacking, because it's available to them. But they're just focused on the lack. And we see that very clearly here. This is a very self-satisfied person, a self-sufficient person, but that state of being leads to this, abundance, being able to share with others, happiness, fulfillment. Now, how we represent to the outside world right now is the King of Cups. So that's a nice place to be. That means that we are honoring our emotional wealth. We are honoring the great lessons we've learned. We are carrying that knowingness into our environment. We are being perceived by others as people who are disciplined in our faith, in our self-belief, and that we, as we embody that, are also already in that place of service and humility, right? The King of Cups knows himself to such a degree that no matter what storms he weathers, no matter where the subconscious plight takes him, he is steady and balanced and capable of maintaining his center. Because he knows that any external deterrent, any external chaos is a gift to bring attention back to the process that he has already been through. It's actually a strengthening opportunity, right? In the way that we experience in the environment around us, we have the Fool. So this awareness of service and humility within ourselves and how that actually elevates us and brings us to a place of more harmony is a brand new opportunity for us to redefine ourselves in our environments. You know, we actually now have the tools to be able to present ourselves to others as being in the fullness of the definition of what we have aimed to become through this spiritual awakening and this process of egoic calming of, you know, I saw the Strength card wanted to come out as a clarifier when I was going to pull more clarifiers for the tarot from the Rider-Waite deck, and I just decided I didn't want to do any more clarifiers because I felt like this is a very spiritual reading rather than a tangible external reading. But the Strength card was there to clarify this. So that is, again, this idea of, like, you know, taming the inner beast, but not in the sense of controlling. It's in the infinite flow of master-servant being one of the same. Again, that's what power structures, authoritarian interpretations of religion, spirituality, government, whatever else, they pervert that course for us all, and we get very confused because we see a separateness of master and servant. But we are master of ourselves and servant to ourselves because we are God, right? Again, what's very nice about this reading is that in our psychology card, we have the King of Cups. I mean, the Queen of Cups. So, you know, the counterpart to the King of Cups. Now, the Queen of Cups doesn't have this same self-determination in the sense that she's still open to experiencing newness, in the sense that it's part of her very essence. She is that emotionality. That is who she is. That is what she depends on to have a human experience, is new emotional opportunities. So again, this Fool card sort of bridges that for us. You know, it's like, this is our inner knowingness. We're ready now for this, to take that into the outside world, to be in service and humility to our experiences, to other people, to our process of the school of life that we experience, right? And in doing so, we accept that we are open to new tempering experiences. Sorry, I have a very itchy nose right now, which usually means that spirit is kind of going like, yes, 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 that's how I experience, but it would be nice if it was something different, because not only is it really itchy, but it makes my nose red on camera, so I'll probably look crazy. But never mind. It's not as if I was looking great anyway, as I'm in my pajamas. As I said, you can probably hear the rain. It's very soothing, really, isn't it? It's certainly way more quiet with the rain, because nobody is around outside, so we don't have all that chaotic noise that we've had in the last few videos that I've posted, which I apologize for. I'm acutely aware of how distracting it is sometimes. Imagine what it's like doing the reading, right? So anyway, we're coming to the closing of our reading, and our outcome, very interestingly, is a very specific message. The Four of Swords, which is a healing card in this case. This is all about healing. So again, everything that we've just discussed is in service to this process, a deep, deep, deep spiritual healing. Not a cleansing, a healing. It's like basically like reaping the rewards of all that we've experienced, right? And the fact that it was clarified by the Eight of Pentacles reversed tells me that in order for us to experience that healing, we have to take, this is going to be a very literal interpretation of that, we have to take a break from work. And when I say work, I mean, obviously you can't necessarily just take a break from your job if you have a job, but how you prioritize it in your life. This is a time when you can do that. You can, we need to have that hanged man star opportunity. And the only way we're going to do that is if we quieten our minds from all of the work, creative, outer manifestation of our being that requires focus, discipline, blah, 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 to focus instead on discipline with healing. That's really what that comes down to. Take the work ethic that you have and apply it to yourself, to your healing process. And how do we get there? We got these two cards from the Osho deck, which I will read as I traditionally do. We've had ordinariness recently, so I will read it quickly, if I can find it. Okay. So that would be the Eight of Pentacles, interestingly, which is what this was, reversed. So there must be a message in that for us. 152. Okay. Now I know you may be bored of hearing these messages, but it's always good to be reminded. The figure walking in nature shows us that beauty can be found in the simple, ordinary things of life. We so easily take this beautiful world we live in for granted. Cleaning the house, tending the garden, cooking a meal. The most mundane tasks take on a sacred quality when they are performed with your total involvement, with love, and for their own sake, without thought of recognition or reward. You are facing a time now when the easy, natural, and utterly ordinary approach to the situations you encounter will bring far better results than any attempt on your part to be brilliant, clever, or otherwise extraordinary. Forget all about making headlines by inventing the latest widget or dazzling your friends and colleagues with your unique star quality. The special gift you have to offer now is presented best by just taking things easily and simply, one step at a time. Well, that is pretty much on the nose. Our other card, Beyond Illusion, I believe is the Judgment card. Let me see if I can find it. 42. Okay. The butterfly in this card represents the outer, that which is constantly moving and that which is not real but an illusion. Behind the butterfly is the phase of consciousness, looking inward to that which is eternal. The space between the two eyes has opened. Oh, sorry, I'm not even showing you the card. Revealing the lotus of spiritual unfoldment and the rising sun of awareness. Through the rising of the inner sun, meditation is born. The card reminds us not to look outside for what is real, but to look within. When we focus on externals, we too often get caught up in judgments. This is good, this is bad. I want this, I don't want that. These judgments keep us trapped in our illusions, our sleepiness, our old habits and patterns. Drop your opinionated mind and move inside. There you can relax into your own deeper truth, where the differences between dreams and reality are already known. This is the only distinction between the dream and the real. Reality allows you to doubt, and the dream does not allow you to doubt. To me, the capacity to doubt is one of the greatest blessings to humanity. The religions have been enemies because they have been cutting the very roots of doubt, and there is a reason why they have been doing that, because they want people to believe in certain illusions that they have been preaching. Substitute religions for governments, too. It's all the same crap, right? Control energies. When we have our sovereignty within. That's what you have to say. But do it in a spiritual way, right? Why have the people like Gautam Buddha been so insistent that the whole existence, except your witnessing self, except your awareness, is just ephemeral, made of the same stuff as dreams are made of? They are not saying that these trees are not there. They are not saying that these pillars are not there. Don't misunderstand because of the word illusion. It has been translated as illusion, but illusion is not the right word. Illusion does not exist. Reality exists. Maya is just in between. It always exists. It almost exists. I should reread that because that was very misleading. It has been translated as illusion, but illusion is not the right word. Illusion does not exist. Reality exists. Maya is just in between. It almost exists. As far as day-to-day activities are concerned, it can be taken as reality. Only in the ultimate sense, from the peak of your illumination, it becomes unreal, illusory. Something to think about too. And on that note, I shall leave you to think. I need to go make myself another cup of tea to enjoy another hour of nothingness. And that's all I have to say. I wish you a blessed, beautiful week contemplating humility and service. And humility and service, I'll remind you, is not just to others. It's to you too. I love you. Namaste.